Good morning. Our first item of business today is general questions, and our first question is from Tom Arthur. Point of order, Elaine Smith.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Could I raise a point of order under Rule 3.1.3, which says in exercising any function, the PO and DPO shall act impartially, taking account of the interests of all members equally. I understand from a media report today and then confirmed by the Government that the First Minister will be afforded time prior to the start of First Minister's questions to make remarks about the resignation of the Cabinet Secretary for Finance, Economy and Fair Work. I contacted your office to ask about extra question time for party leaders to respond to whatever the First Minister wishes to say. I was advised they would have to use their normal allocation. So whilst I appreciate that making a preamble remark is allowed, it surely can't be right that party leaders have to use their time for scrutiny of the First Minister to comment on this issue, whilst the First Minister is effectively given extra time to do so because it eats into the scrutiny time for the other questions to come. So therefore, could I ask you if the members can be treated equally in this regard and the extra time be given to party leaders? Thank you.
Can I thank Ms Smith for advance notice that she intended to raise a point of order? And just to reiterate, this is the normal procedure that we follow here. Particularly after we abandoned the process we had before, where party leaders had to read out a diary question. We introduced a procedure which allowed the First Minister or other party leaders to make a short statement on a matter of importance before the question. The First Minister asked my office and I agreed to such a statement. However, it's a statement for the First Minister to which the opposition party leaders may make a very short, brief response, but it is not for the party leaders to make a statement on this matter. Now, as business manager, I would suggest that if you wish a statement and you wish parliamentary time to be voted to this, then it's up to you to make a proposal to the Bureau and we'll discuss making parliamentary time available. I would also emphasise that if any of the party leaders wish to pursue this matter, they can use their questions to pursue this matter, as is always the case. So I hope that addresses the point of order. So we turn to question number 1. Tom Arthur.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I refer members to my register of interest, in particular my membership of the Musicians' Union, to ask the Scottish Government how it promotes the music sector in Europe.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
We fund Creative Scotland to support and promote Scottish music in the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. Since 2008, we have invested £25 million in the Festival's Expo Fund, providing an additional platform for Scottish musicians to pursue onward touring, including to the rest of Europe. Every year since 2007, we've allocated £350,000 to support our national performing companies perform in Europe and the rest of the world through the International Touring Fund.
Thank you, Tom Arthur.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer and commend the Scottish Government on the support it gives to the Scottish music sector. The Musicians' Union is calling on the UK Government and Westminster to back a musician's passport for musicians working in the EU post-Brexit. They believe that such a touring visa scheme should last a minimum of 2 years, be free or cheap, cover all EU member states, get rid of the need for carnets and other permits, and cover road crew, technicians and other staff necessary for musicians to do their jobs. As convener of the cross-party group in music, I will be writing to the UK Secretary of State for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, Nicky Morgan, to raise this matter directly. However, can I ask the Cabinet Secretary if the Scottish Government will support the calls of both the Musicians' Union and the cross-party group on music to support continued ease of movement for Scottish and UK musicians in Europe, and to raise this matter directly with the UK Government?
Cabinet Secretary.
The UK Government and the European Commission have both this week set out their starting position on negotiations on the future relationship. The ability for UK citizens and companies to easily enter and move around and do business in the European Union is every bit as important as arrangements from those from the rest of Europe to come here. We will listen very carefully to the position of the Musicians' Union and others who have an interest. Of course, we launched our policy paper last week, Migration Helping Scotland Prosper, and it spoke of our desire to have an open, flexible agreement on mobility between the UK and the EU, and this is what we will pursue. I'll be very interested in the discussions that the Musicians' Union have with the UK Government, and of course there may be an opportunity for this idea from the Musicians' Union for a touring visa to be raised at the forthcoming festival visa summit that we're hosting soon with the UK, Welsh and the Northern Irish governments.
And Rachel Hamilton.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Cabinet Secretary, the music sector is vitally important to promoting Scottish culture. However, I am concerned, as are Sir James Macmillan, Sally Beamish and Phil Cunningham and other leading music academics, about the impact of music tuition fees in school. There is potential for pupils to be squeezed out of music tuition, especially those from a deprived background, meaning a generation will miss out on representing Scotland on the music stage. Can I ask the Cabinet Secretary, will she realise this and ensure the upcoming budget better promotes music in our school, but particularly for kids on free school meals?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, the member will be aware that the Scottish Government supports music, particularly through our Youth Music Initiative, which we have maintained in recent years. It's very important to encourage and inspire young people in regards to music. The Cabinet Secretary for Education and I have regularly met with the Music Education Working Group, and that is an area where we're pursuing with local authorities and particularly with COSLA to make sure that there is access for tuition, and of course with a very fair funding settlement for local government. You have seen repeatedly a number of councils, particularly Dundee and Glasgow, ensuring that there is free music tuition. It's recognised that free music tuition does so much for individuals and can tackle attainment, as well as providing the lifeblood for future musicians to tour and have business and have careers in the music sector. So we have got some very good proposals coming forward from a number of individuals, not least Nicola Benedetti, she may be familiar with, in her proposal for a charitable trust. So I think together with the work of John Wallace and the Education Music Group, there'll be positive developments to ensure that we can maintain music tuition and to ensure particularly that youngsters from deprived areas, financially deprived areas, do have access. So I'm glad that we have cross-party support in that pursuit.
Thank you. Question 2, David Torrance.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on the progress with the reinstatement of the Levenmouth rail link.
Cabinet Secretary Michael Matheson.
Following my announcement in August 2019, Railtrack has been commissioned to design and construct the new Levenmouth passenger and freight railway. It's currently undertaking survey work to inform the option selection, which will determine the most appropriate scheme to reopen the Levenmouth branch. This will deliver new, fully accessible stations within Leven and Cameron Bridge. All partners involved in the delivery are committed to an opening as soon as possible. However, this is dependent upon a number of factors, including planning, which Fife Council is responsible for.
David Torrance.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Can the Cabinet Secretary advise what assistance the Scottish Government can give to further progress the formation of a Levenmouth blueprint group, as to date Fife Council have been unable to appoint a project manager to coordinate this additional £10 million investment in the area?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, Presiding Officer, the member will be aware that we have provided £5 million towards the Levenmouth Blueprint Fund, which is to assist further developments around the reopening of the Levenmouth railway line, and I know that has been match funded by Fife Council, which is very welcome. I understand that they have been having difficulty in recruiting a programme manager to take this piece of work forward. They are due to re-advertise for the post. However, should they be unable to secure the right individual to take forward this particular element of the redevelopment of the Levenmouth line, then the leadership group, which involves a number of Scottish Government agencies, will look at other options that can assist in making further progress with this matter and to assist Fife Council making progress on the issue.
There's actually a lot of interest in this question, but I can't take all the supplementaries. I'll just take Alexander Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Cabinet Secretary, I very much welcome the progress taking place on the Levenmouth rail link. With projects of this nature, training opportunities are normally provided to members of the local community. Therefore, can I ask what assurances you can give that this will indeed take place with the Levenmouth rail link?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, Presiding Officer, that's what the Levenmouth Blueprint Fund is for, to assist that type of work. And obviously Network Rail will be looking at how they can engage with a range of local businesses and companies around training provision within the area. But what we want to do is to make sure that in reopening the line is that there are wider benefits that the Fife community and the Levenmouth community can gain from this. That's exactly why this fund has actually been set up.
Briefly, Jenny Gilruth.
Presiding Officer. Given that work has now started to prepare the site, can the Cabinet Secretary facilitate a site visit for my colleague David Torrance and I to explore the progress thus far in securing the return of Levenmouth Railway?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I'm more than happy to arrange for my officials to contact General Groot's office in order to facilitate a visit to the site.
Thank you. Question 3, Daniel Johnson.
To ask the Scottish Government whether Police Scotland has a policy of routinely fingerprinting dual nationals or British citizens born abroad.
Cabinet Secretary Hamza Youssef.
This is, of course, an operational matter for Police Scotland. However, they have advised me that they do not routinely fingerprint dual nationals or British citizens born abroad. Police Scotland's fingerprinting policy is set out in their fingerprinting standard operating procedure and sets out a number of reasons for a person's fingerprint to be lawfully taken, including voluntarily for elimination purposes, identification of deceased persons, and for immigration, employment and educational visas.
Daniel Johnson.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for the answer, but I've been contacted by a very concerned constituent of mine, born in the Middle East, a naturalised British citizen who came into contact with the police due to an altercation with a neighbour. He was not arrested, was not questioned under caution, and was not charged, but had his fingerprints taken and was told that was done so because he was born outside the UK. My correspondence with Police Scotland suggests they are routinely fingerprinting foreign-born and dual nationals, apparently on the pretext of Home Office requirements. But surely it is not right to be treated differently and fingerprinted because you are a naturalised rather than a British citizen by birth. So does the Cabinet Secretary share my concern about how such determinations will be made? And I would be grateful he'd undertake to examine this further.
Cabinet Secretary.
I'd be more than happy to meet with Daniel Johnson and to receive details of that specific constituency case that he refers to. It would be my understanding when it comes to Police Scotland and when it comes to Operation Nexus, it was set up, as he probably knows, by Home Office Immigration and Enforcement and the Metropolitan Police with the intention of improving the management of foreign national offenders. That can also be in the case where a complaint has been made, and I don't know if that is the case in this specific case, but a complaint has been made, then a fingerprint can be taken within that framework, whether somebody is a foreign national or indeed a dual national. But if he believes, as he's suggesting, that this is being done for any other purpose or being routinely done, then of course I'm more than happy to investigate that, and perhaps I can meet with Daniel Johnson to understand the specifics of the case that he mentions.
Thank you very much. Question 4, Gillian Martin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it plans to improve the rates of testing for cervical cancer.
Minister Joe Fitzpatrick.
We know that screening remains the best way to detect cervical cancer early and help reduce health inequalities in cancer outcomes. Regular smear tests, along with having the HPV vaccine, are vital in the fight against cervical cancer, and we strongly recommend everyone who is eligible to take up their screening invite. From spring 2020, HPV testing will be introduced into the Scottish Cervical Screening Programme. HPV testing is a more sensitive and effective test for identifying women at risk of cervical cancer. It will help ensure any cell changes are identified and treated earlier. Combined with the success of the HPV vaccine for both girls and now boys, and the implementation of HPV primary testing, we hope that cervical cancer can be eliminated in Scotland.
Gillian Martin.
I thank the Minister for that answer. A study presented at the National Cancer Research Institute conference in Glasgow last year involved a test called S5 that detects whether DNA from 4 types of HPV linked to increased risk of cervical cancer can be modified through a process known as methylation. The test can be self-administered at home. Has the Government done work to assess whether home testing would increase the rates of cervical cancer detection and improve testing rates?
Minister.
I thank the member for the question. Obviously, there is a lot of research ongoing in this area, and I'm pleased to be able to confirm that a working group is being convened to establish a cervical screening self-sampling pilot in Scotland to be introduced later this year. Crucially, that will be a national pilot across all areas of Scotland, and in the next few months the working group will scope out all the detail, including the length of the pilot, the numbers invited, comms, engagement strategy, etc. And I look forward to updating members further in due course.
Emma Harper.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. It's interesting to hear about the self-test pilot studies for human papillomavirus, and I know that NHS Dumfries and Galloway are part of this research. So would the Minister be able to keep us updated in chamber or by writing as to the progress of the self-test pilot study?
Minister.
I think I absolutely commit to keeping the chamber up to date. I think this is a really innovative way forward, and I think it puts Scotland ahead of most other parts of the UK. And I think particularly because it's a Scotland-wide pilot that we're going to be taking forward, I'm absolutely committed to making sure that the Parliament as a whole is up to date on the progress of that and how it's going to be rolled out.
Thank you. Question 5, Claire Baker.
To ask the Scottish Government when it planned, apologies, Presiding Officer, to ask the Scottish Government when it last met BBC Scotland and what issues were discussed.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
The First Minister and I both met BBC Director General Lord Hall on the 30th of November 2018 and discussed the services we expected the BBC to deliver in Scotland and the BBC's consultation on free licence fees for over 75s. I spoke by telephone with Ken Macquarie, Director of BBC Nations and Regions, on the 11th of June 2019 about the decision to stop licence fees for all over 75s not on pension credit. My officials have regular contact with BBC staff on a range of issues, including at meetings on the TV Working Group, a forum for public agencies and the industry to discuss developments in broadcasting and screen.
Claire Baker.
Thank you. It's almost a year since the launch of the BBC Scotland channel and the welcome additional funding that came to Scottish Broadcasting. In light of the UK Government's consultation on decriminalising TV licence fee evasion, has the Scottish Government given consideration to the consequences for Scottish-based broadcasting if this were to go ahead, given the conclusions of the 2015 Perry Review?
The member is correct to point to the consultation that took place in 2014-15. Given that the BBC Royal Charter was agreed and in place until the end of 2027, the move to decriminalisation appears hasty and unnecessary and could have potential costs and therefore impact on important programming. I think it should be pointed out that in Scotland, evasion cases are investigated by TV licensing, but prosecutions are brought by the Procurator Fiscal, and under powers provided by the statute, the Procurator Fiscal may decide to use an out-of-court disposal, which means that a defendant may avoid prosecution by agreeing to pay a fixed sum of money. So in Scotland, significantly fewer cases are dealt with by the courts, as a majority of defendants utilise this out-of-court disposal option. And at the time that she refers to in 2014-15, the Scottish Courts and Tribunals Service indicated that a move to decriminalisation could actually increase the cost, not only to the courts, but also to others, and the cost of the courts could be over £200,000. So I'm not sure there's a win for Scotland in what is being proposed by the UK Government.
Question number 6, Pauline McNeill.
To ask the Scottish Government what its position is on introducing a single consent form to allow benefit claimants to agree to share their data for the purpose of benefit take-up.
Cabinet Secretary Shirley-Ann Somerville.
We are committed to maximising the take-up of Scottish benefits and published our benefit take-up strategy in October 2019. The Social Security Scotland Act 2018 places a duty on the Scottish ministers to inform applicants what other devolved benefits they may be eligible for when making a determination on an application. We continue to collaborate with local authorities, COSLA and the Department for Work and Pensions to ensure that, for clients in receipt of devolved forms of assistance, access to passported benefits is made simpler. There are a number of factors to consider in developing an approach to this, and we will always put the needs and the experience of the clients first.
Pauline McNeill.
Cabinet Secretary knows only too well that the DWP estimate of unclaimed benefits is actually £10 billion. And the submission to the Social Security ongoing inquiry to highlight one of the biggest blockers to take up is data protectionism, where data owners create pseudo data protection rules that actually blocks the appropriate sharing of data. In view of this, I wonder if the Cabinet Secretary would consider increasing awareness and if a single consent form could be beneficial to the Scottish Government for new claimants, and perhaps a booklet raising their awareness that once they share their data for the purposes of Social Security, it will only be used for that purpose.
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, this is something which Pauline McNeill and I spoke about at great length when I was at the Social Security Committee earlier on today to discuss benefit take-up, and I do take very seriously our responsibility on this and do recognise Pauline McNeill's continuing desire to push the Government, quite rightly, to do more on that. GDPR should never be an excuse to do less in an area. It should be the responsibility of Government and other agencies to work together to see how we can protect a client's data, but do so in a way that works for that client. It is difficult to share information. We will require, for example, 32 information sharing agreements with the local authorities to allow that happen, but it is something that the government is taking proactive action on.
Thank you very much, and that concludes general questions.